Hello, hello, and welcome to Love Your Lens, 3 strategies for living in infinite joy. I am your host, Helena Grant, and I am just delighted to be offering you take 2 on this webinar. I actually just got off the live webinar this morning. There were over 30 people there enjoying these teachings, interacting, giving incredible insights, and it was a joyful, truly, truly joyful experience for me to host it. And as I left the webinar, I realized I did not record it. And I really feel called to at least try to harness some of the amazing energy that I brought forth this morning, even though it's not quite the same. So we'll see where this goes, but all of the insights are still completely valid, obviously, and I am so, so honored and humbled to be able to bring them to you through this medium. So we are just going to launch right in to this concept of what it means to live in infinite joy and how you can start doing that right now, today, in these moments, even while you are listening to this presentation. Thank you so much for taking this time. I will keep it brief for you. So let's start with what I truly believe our purpose is as humans. And I think that with what is going on in the world, this global pandemic that we've been faced with, there are so many lessons to be learned. There's so much to be gleaned from it. But something that we've really had to face is a big question about who we are, why we're here, what our purpose is. And to me, that purpose really is to love and live in joy. We are here to love and live in joy. Now, these are 2 actually seemingly very simple, basic concepts of love and joy. We hear a lot about them. But simple does not necessarily mean easy. And they're very, very big topics. And there is so much to say about both of them. And before I say more, I'm going to take a quick sip out of my mug here that says, may you be filled with joy. And indeed, may you be filled with joy. And may these insights contribute to you truly being overflowing with joy, so that it can guide you in everything that you do, and then you can even more beneficially share it with the world. Excuse me. So my first question for you, and since we don't have the live chat, I really encourage you to take notes through this presentation. I talked about that in my kickoff webinar for the synthesis of style and spirit, that when you handwrite something, it creates a whole different experience for your brain as it's processing the information. It actually turns that intellectual information into a physiological experience, which helps that information get programmed into your body, which is where your higher intelligence exists and lives. And that higher intelligence is exactly what wants you to live that purpose of living and loving and being fully present in joy, which is your birthright as a human, to be in joy. So what is joy? I would love for you to just pose that question in your journal. You can write down some responses as I'm talking. You can take some time after you listen to this to really explore what joy means to you, because joy is truly personal and relative. My joy might not be your joy. Your joy right now might not be what gave you joy 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 days ago, 5 hours ago, even 5 minutes ago. It can change. It can be very transient, and it is totally individual what someone experiences as joy. And it's also a choice, which I will get into in a moment. But to me, Joy as a concept is complete dissolution of separateness, complete dissolution of separateness, so that you can live in a state of flow and ease. So really, things just sort of happen for you, and you can be in that space of true enjoyment. You are in joy. I-N, joy is enjoyment. E-N-J-O-Y-M-E-N-T. And joy is also a very high vibrational state. So I hope that at some point in your life, you have experienced joy at some point, at least once, hopefully more. But you probably are familiar with the feeling that it really is like sort of this otherworldly feeling of joy. And we sometimes convince ourselves to not be in that state. Like we can't handle the sensation of joy. It's just too much for our brains to handle. And so we convince ourselves to not be in joy because it's too much to kind of wrap our heads around and really experience. So attaining that higher vibrational state of joy means that you are allowing that to happen and that you have made room for it, that you have made space for that joy to exist and to expand and really inhabit your being, your experience, your perspective, what you project out into the world, and really just kind of giving over to it and delivering up to that joy, which again is what your higher intelligence is really guiding you towards all the time. And so again, when I say that it's personal and relative, that one person's joy might not be another person's joy, that's why they say it's about following your bliss. Not about following the bliss, about following your bliss. It's about really discovering what joy means to you, what brings enjoyment into your life. And I love words. I think that words are one of the most incredible magical tools that we have available to us as humans. I love language, all language. I studied Latin all through grade school, and I really dove deep into French as a language. I lived in France 3 times. And I just really, really love the Romance languages. And so, of course, in French, joy is la joie. And when you are in enjoyment, in joy, E-N, joy, en joy, that is your enjoyment. And I think something that really interferes with us being able to experience joy and living in joy is that it takes enormous courage to do so. It takes courage to allow that joy to exist. It takes courage to make space for that joy to exist. And in order to really be in that experience and inhabit that higher vibrational state, we need to be living from our hearts, which of course in French is le cœur, the core of your being. And that is where the word courageous comes from, that you are living from your heart, which is just an extraordinary aspect of our human experience. I mean, the heart is where it is the center of your higher intelligence. It is what first manifests physically at the beginning of life, is your heartbeat. And it is really in charge of all the systems. The heart is the first thing that really comes to life at the beginning of your life. And it is actually the first thing, one of the last things to go as, you pass, as you transition out of physical form. So really, it does take an enormous amount of courage to be in enjoyment and to really be fully experiencing that higher intelligence guiding you towards that place of joy and wholeness. A unified body, a unified being is one that is whole and really, again, living from that heart, living from that place where joy exists and is your birthright. So as I explored this concept of joy, of course, I dove into the synonyms and the antonyms of joy. So as you are asking yourself this question, what is joy? What does joy mean to me? I'm going to throw out some words associated with joy. And I'm actually going to start with the antonyms. What joy is not. Joy is not depression, melancholy, misery, sadness, seriousness, sorrow, unhappiness, discouragement, dislike, mourning, or woe. Joy is not any of those things. However, I truly believe that joy can come from those things because, I look at those sort of words, those concepts, the image that it conjures is really like digging a hole, like digging a deep, dark hole. And sometimes if you're depressed or you're woeful or you're unhappy, you're kind of in that depth and you're in that darkness. But of course, when you fill that in with the right ingredients and the right fertilizer, that hole can become a place of incredible life and wealth and abundance, if you put the right seeds and bulbs and water it and give it sunlight. So, of course, we have all kinds of metaphors for nature that are available to us. And so joy as a definition is great happiness or pleasure. And I would like to add on to that great happiness and pleasure being embodied and expressed. It's not just intellectual. It's not just up here in the brain. It's here in the body. It's here in the heart. And it's moving all through, flowing through your being, your experience, and how you feel about yourself and how you're projecting out into the world. So that great happiness, that pleasure that is embodied and expressed. I'm going to read off some of the synonyms now from this list that I have. Joy is amusement, it's bliss. Joy is charm, cheer, comfort, delight, elation, glee, humor, pride, satisfaction, wonder, animation, ecstasy, exultation, felicity, festivity, frolicking, fruition, gaiety, gladness, gratification, hilarity, indulgence, jubilance, liveliness, luxury, merriment, mirth, prize, rapture, ravishment, which I love. That reminds me of the word je suis ravie, means I'm delighted in French. Ravishment, I'm just delighting in this experience of what's going on. Refreshment, rejoicing, J-O-I is in rejoicing, which of course, again, is joie in French. Revelry, solace, transport, treasure, and treat are all synonyms of joy. So I hope that hearing those words will help you in that exploration of what joy is to you and what that means. And really, I think so much of what it boils down to is that joy is a choice. It is a choice as to whether you're going to experience something as pleasure or pain, joy or sorrow. It is totally up to you to how you respond to any given circumstance. So as you're exploring what joy means, something that can really help you in that sort of conversation and discussion with yourself is, where do you find enjoyment? What do you enjoy doing? Is it being outside? Is it creating art? Is it writing? Is it baking? Is it riding a horse? Is it building a beautiful, delightful life with your partner? Is it being with children? Where do you find enjoyment? And again, where you find enjoyment now, maybe it's something that you found enjoyment in the past, or maybe it's something new. Maybe it's in exploring something new, doing something different. It can take all kinds of forms. And oftentimes when we feel stuck as adults about what we enjoy doing, it is really helpful to go back to childhood and really take a look at what you loved to do when you were younger and when you didn't have to prove anything, when you could just be yourself. You could just be growing, you could be exploring. What did you do? When I was younger, I really loved writing little stories and drawing pictures, and I loved making things with my hands, and I loved acting things out in the mirror, being very dramatic and getting dressed. Those were the kinds of things that I really loved when I was younger. And of course, bringing that into our adult lives can really help us manifest, live, and truly experience and embody joy. So again, that's something to sort of mull over. What is joy to me? Where do I find enjoyment? Those are very big questions that you may be able to get some good answers immediately, access what those answers might be. That might be an exploration of something that you can do going forward and really sort of let those questions marinate. And so as you do that, ask those questions, I want to talk a little bit about my story of arriving to this place where I can find joy at any given moment, at any given time, no matter what is going on in the outside world. Because again, it's that internal choice of allowing that joy to exist and really committing to what it is and finding it. But I was not always that way. And I think a lot of people would say that I was always a very happy person. I was always very positive, but that was really just programming. That was my sort of defense mechanism. That was my armor. That was my mask. And it is a part of my nature to be positive and bubbly and happy. But underlying that, and it was actually more of a response to a deep misery. I was trying to convince myself to not be so miserable. And because that misery existed on such a deep level, I was a complete physical, emotional mess. I was just a total cluster of syndromes and disorders. And, you know, you think about people who have higher education, they have like alphabet soup after their names, PhD, MBA. I had an alphabet soup of the syndromes and disorders that nothing could be identified as what was the real problem, but all the symptoms created all these issues, which of course made me a walking pharmacy. And all of that programming, all of the things that I did to sort of cover it over and not acknowledge it, then manifested as a lot of illnesses, you know, sinuses, sore throats. I would lose my voice like every month. And of course, you know, need to be in bed for days at a time. So that was really going on until about 3 years ago when I had a car accident that totally changed everything and made me really start to look within for the answers and not necessarily for all the external validation that I had sought my whole life, as a way to give me confidence and as a way to feed me joy that was not true joy. And of course, it's so fleeting when it comes from someone else, from somewhere else, and not from your own choices and your own allowing. So truly, truly, truly deeply miserable. And actually, as I'm talking about it, I'm feeling pain in my heart for that woman that I was. I had this beautiful life, a beautiful daughter, a loving husband, a beautiful place to live, wonderful friends, a business that was thriving. And yet, again, just profoundly and deeply unhappy. And with that accident, it really led me to realize that the only thing interfering with my happiness, my abundance, and being able to deliver my gifts to the world was me and my experience, and how I really wasn't allowing myself to be in enjoyment of my life. So that is why I created this webinar about Love Your Lens. And it also came from a moment last April when I was recovering from an illness that involved losing a pregnancy, and my body had changed in response to getting quite a ways into the pregnancy and then losing her to what I believe the physical body she had chosen at that moment was not strong enough for her spirit. But of course, it left me with so many changes and an experience that I felt contributed to me being able to go through something that was happening for me, and that was happening for me to be able to help people on a much more profound level, because I had always been helping women heal their relationships with themselves and how they saw themselves. But of course, I hadn't necessarily done that for myself. I could tell people how to do it, but I wasn't really living it. And this moment last April, I was faced with my reflection in the mirror, and I just had a complete breakdown, absolute breakdown. And thankfully, I was able to rely on some of my spiritual tools and my perspectives to realize that, again, that moment was happening to me, but it was also happening for me and for the benefit of the work that I do in the world. So, that concept of those breakdowns really being breakthroughs in disguise, and being really christened by extraordinary tears and sobs. But it also was informed by work that I had done with women, that I would get them dressed and I would say, this is what I see, you look fabulous. And they would face their reflection in the mirror, and everything that I had told them would be completely wiped out, totally disintegrate as they faced what they were seeing in the mirror. And they would reflect to me what they saw. Oh my God, I'm so fat, or I look so awful, I'm so ugly. All these stories that they were carrying with them that were being projected in this experience of looking at their reflection. And so I would pull them away from the mirror and I would take a photo of them on my phone. And then I would show them the photo. And it was extraordinary to me to see their response, that it was completely different when they looked at an image of themselves versus looking at a reflection, because that relationship with the mirror is actually completely different than the relationship with an image. And so this really led me to explore what was behind that. And that moment last April, when I had that experience of extraordinary self-loathing, when I was looking in the mirror, I thought, oh my God, this is it. This is now happening to me, that I've witnessed this in other women. I hadn't necessarily experienced it to that level. And it really was just this like wave that overcame me and really has brought me to this moment now of delivering these principles about truly living in joy, which I believe starts with your relationship with yourself. Living in joy starts with your relationship with yourself, and the relationship with yourself is fully reflected in the mirror. So I want to ask you, if you don't love your reflection, how can you like your projection? Because there are no others in this world. And that is something that this pandemic has been teaching us, that we are all so intricately connected. It does not matter where you live. It does not matter what your skin looks like. It does not matter what your culture is. We are all a part of humanity, and we are all absolutely, completely connected. We live on the island of Earth. This is all our island. We are not separate. And that, again, that concept of joy, that it is the dissolution of separateness. So we're being faced with this possibility that we are not separate and that there are no others. So when we see ourselves, we're actually seeing the whole world. And the way that we see ourselves, the way that we interact, that relationship that we have with ourselves is reflected not just between you and the mirror and your reflection, but outward. The way that you treat yourself, the way that you feel about yourself is the way that you feel about other people, is the way that you feel about the world, and that's the way that you get treated. So that when you really cultivate that relationship with yourself, when you live with love and in joy, then it can spill out and spread everywhere. So really loving yourself, loving what you see and how you see it, that's loving your lens. And when you love yourself, that is the ultimate purpose, I think, for all of us as humans. And to get to that next level of that higher vibration of joy, you really need to get to a place of going back and going within. Thank you. This is my daughter bringing me joy from outside. I'm finishing up a little presentation. Thank you so much. That is joy right there. So joy is this, it's very conceptual, of course. And on so many levels, it really wants to permeate versus be contained or deferred. When I think about joy, think of the medicine of hummingbird that really embodies that concept of joy. And the hummingbird quickly dies when caged or confined. You know, when we confine joy, when we don't express it, when we don't embody it, it just sort of dissipates, and it sort of says like, oh, well, I'm not being acknowledged and honored, so I'm just going to sort of wilt like the dragon, the hummingbird that really wants to be buzzing around, bringing the nectar from different blossoms and flowers and cultivating and spreading life and spreading joy. It can't handle being put in a cage. So that joy, when you access it, when you choose to access it, when you allow it, you really are bringing something new and something incredibly beneficial and so, so beautiful into your own experience and the experience of other people. So now let's move on to the 3 strategies for loving your lens and living in infinite joy. So the first strategy, number 1, is to surrender to the bliss that already exists. Let me say that again. Surrender to the bliss that already exists. You can look at everything around you, even the things that you might not like, and you can take stock and acknowledge that you brought all of it into your life, and you can celebrate that. It's a job well done, and your desire can evolve through fulfillment. You have brought all of these things into your life, even though maybe consciously you don't like them. You are the creator of your experience, and so you can decide how you look at those things. You can find that bliss, you can make that choice, and you can allow yourself to experience joy about just about anything. And when you do, that whole part of you feels acknowledged and honored and approved of. And so then you can start bringing in the things that you really do want, the conscious goals that you have. Suddenly you don't have to be repeating patterns that your subconscious wants you to learn the lesson over and over again. So surrender to the bliss that already exists. And when I say surrender, I know a lot of people think of like the white flag, but surrender can actually be very, very empowering. And when you think of surrender as delivering up, you are really allowing and kind of handing control over to that higher intelligence that is already programmed into your being, and that again is calling you to that place of living in joy. So surrender to that bliss because it already exists and it's calling to you. So strategy number 2 is to exercise curiosity and a willingness to explore. So this gets back to what we were talking about, sort of that childlike approach, that curiosity, being willing to ask questions. So now that you have surrendered to that bliss that already exists and you've taken stock and really looked at things and maybe thought like, well, I don't like this situation or what's going on in my life, but I'm getting something out of it. I'm learning something. I'm expanding because of it. You can start to then ask questions like, why did I bring this in? What happened here? What's going on? What is this teaching me? Why is this going on again? What does this relate to in the past? Where else can I see this manifesting in other areas? And when you ask those questions, when you start to really get curious, then you identify why those things might have come into your life and why they might be interfering with you experiencing infinite joy. So again, surrender to that bliss that already exists and really start to get curious. Exercise curiosity and a willingness to explore. And that's going to really start to maybe unearth some things. They might not be super comfortable, but then you can come back to that place of love and joy in your heart and just put them in your heart. And your heart will take care of any emotions, any traumas that really just need acknowledgement and love and approval. So number one, surrender to the bliss that already exists. Number two, exercise curiosity and a willingness to explore. And number three is to be courageous and live from the heart. The heart is the most powerful organ in the universe. It's that, again, that first sign of life. It's the hub of all your systems. It really is like the driving force of your body. It is electrically charged. Oh my goodness, it has incredible electrical charge. It's the symbol of higher intelligence, and it is the home, the seat, the resting place of joy, where it exists. It just is where it's held. It's the seat of emotions, and emotions are really this incredible conversation that we can have with that higher intelligence. So living from that place is not what we always do. We sort of just let the heart do its thing, do its programming, like whatever. But when we really focus on living from that centered position, that is when we really can live in infinite joy, because we can dissolve into the infinite, which is the ultimate sacrifice. And this again ties back to that concept of surrender. So again, a lot of people think that surrender is disempowering, but I want to really drive home that surrender can be incredibly empowering, because you get to dissolve that separateness. You can dissolve into that infinite space, that infinite joy, and that higher intelligence. And an open and loving heart are requirements for experiencing joy and love that starts with the self. You are the foundation, the starting place of joy. Again, that joy is all relative. It's very personal. It's very subjective. It's not up to anyone else to tell you what makes you happy. It's up to you to know. It's up to you to experience it, to make the choice to truly embody it and express that joy, to explore it, and to be very, very curious about it. So again, that courageousness, so important. It's making that choice. It's allowing and surrendering to letting joy really be that driving force and that experience for you. So again, those three strategies for living in infinite joy and really loving your lens. Number one, surrender to the bliss that already exists. Number two, exercise curiosity and willingness to explore. And number three is to be courageous and live from your heart. Yes, yes, yes. So that leads me to share with you a program that I have developed. It has been getting developed for probably the past 5 years, ever since I really started working intimately one-to-one and in groups with women. And it is called Courageous, because I want you to live from your heart and in infinite, infinite joy. So I am going to share my screen here and pull up Courageous for you. So I used the symbol of the butterfly because I believe that, of course, the butterfly represents transformation, that sort of movement from the egg to the larva to the caterpillar to the chrysalis to, you know, really having wings and being able to take flight. But I think that a butterfly really has to be very courageous to give itself over to that process. And again, I want you to be living in infinite joy and from that place of the heart. So this is a transformative 5-week journey of coming home to your infinite self. And we're all sort of contemplating transformation right now. We've been very cocooned inside, facing realities and the intricacies of our relationship with ourselves. Totally understandable. There's an extraordinary renaissance going on. Our external structures are really shifting, moving, changing. But of course, there are some things that are true no matter what is going on in the outside world. And when you know who you are, your certainty becomes a source of strength, and you can attain new levels of joy, freedom, and abundance. When I'm talking about abundance, you know what I mean. And when you don't know who you are, that is like a butterfly trying to fly when she's just not strong enough. You know, you can just expend your energy, flap your wings, and just not get anywhere. But of course, that is not your fault. That's conventional wisdom really interfering with that truth and that purpose that joy that is your birthright to embody and express. And that the real reality is you already have everything inside you. All you need is a new way to access the truth and a channel through which to express it. So that is why I created this program, Courageous. And I am living proof of these truths of dissolving trauma and rewriting your story. It just changes everything. You actually don't need to make that many external changes. Those external changes will start to happen in response to that inner work that you do. And this will be sent out as a link, this sales page, but you can get a little bit more insight into my journey from being a complete cluster, the syndromes and the disorders, to really deciding and vowing to uniting and loving all of myself. That self-love, that relationship with yourself, that is the beginning of everything. And when you move from that place of self-loathing to a place of self-love, you can experience life in a new way, and you can live courageously from the heart. So I want to ask some questions that you can sort of enumerate on and really explore and see what the response is in your body. Do you want to look in the mirror and see a beautiful infinite self, one that extends forward, backward, out, to the side, up, down? That is something that is totally available to you, again, when you go through this process of transformation. And are you ready to feel free no matter where you are or what you are doing? Again, that's a choice, but it takes work to get to that place of being able to make that choice. And then I do wonder if overwhelm, fear, or anxiety might be interfering with how you show up in the world. I know that they have really interfered for me. And this moment right here of showing up proves that I have gotten over those fears, overwhelms, and anxieties. And so I want to ask if you're feeling a yes in your body in response to any of these questions, because if you are, that is why I created this program, Courageous. It applies transformative emotional alchemy so you can lead your life in a free and joyful way from your heart. So here are some things you can expect to experience. Week 1 will be establishing engagement and conversation with your infinite self. I touched on this in my kickoff presentation for the synthesis of style and spirit. Will really be uniting that past, present, and future selves. We'll be doing movement, journaling, and dream work. And these will be setting foundational principles that we'll be carrying throughout the 5-week transformation. Week 2, you'll be committing to and accessing committing to accessing and living in joy. This is where we're really going to be grounding into our intention for the course and the program, and kind of exploring where joy has been and where joy is going to be moving forward. Week 3 is juicy. We're going to be developing new relationships with anxiety and fear. Anxiety and fear exist for a reason, and it's not necessarily about avoiding them and denying them. It's really about developing a new relationship with them, because they are hardwired into our being for a reason. They have helped us survive to this point. They've helped us evolve. And when you have a new relationship with them, you can evolve in a new way, show up in a new way, and deliver your gifts to the world. Week 4, we're going to be really diving into the concept of emotional alchemy, have incredible tools to share with you that really are practices that you can do, and they actually become an attitude that you can just apply any moment when anything comes up. And I can assure you, this is what totally transformed my life in a way that now I can really exist in that space of infinite joy. And we'll also be really delving into self-care. When you take care of your body, take care of your vessel, that is the key to finding that joy, to embodying and expressing it. And then week 5, you know, that's like the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. You will be greeting a new reflection. You will have a new relationship with yourself, with your world, the way that you experience it after this week 5. And that will be developing throughout the program, of course. So during this 5-week intensive, you'll be getting 5 guided meditations, weekly journal prompts and practices, and 5 live group calls for focused attention. These calls will be about 90 minutes. This program is going to be limited in space to keep it very intimate. And so those live calls will be amazing. You can explore a little bit about what people have said about working with me, a safe space to fully unpack emotions, feeling confident and validated, touched by a goddess, and feeling truly comfortable and confident in their skin. And all of that will be translated to you. So the logistics of this course is that it's going to run from the first week of June to the first week of July 2020. Again, space is limited. And my promise to you is by the end of these 5 modules, you'll have a fresh perspective on your life and past traumas, more confidence in who you are and your purpose. You'll be comfortable showing up in new and dynamic ways for your life, for your business, for yourself, for your family, and every area of your life. And you'll have tools and practices to help you cope with anything, literally anything. So this journey is for you if you want to know who you really are, you're ready to explore new channels of expression, you're willing to shed light on the darkness of past wounds, and you desire immediate results and practical tools and application. Right here, Courageous is for you. This journey is probably not for you if you lack curiosity, if you can't bring in that principle number 2, that strategy of being willing to be curious. This journey is not for you if you're unwilling to apply a playful attitude to self-discovery. We're going to be taking that really childlike wonder into that curiosity and that exploration. This journey is not for you if you have no interest in changing. I think that sums it up. And this journey is not for you if you want to blend in with the crowd. I want you to take this journey if you are ready to really stand out, to spread your wings and take flight towards your destiny. Some results that you can expect are clarity through daily practices and routines to help you tap into that true self, tap into that infinite joy, so that you can stop second guessing and censoring yourself. I want you to feel authentic and purpose-driven. That is a promise that you will feel those things. Release fear of visibility so you can show up. Break old habits so you can get out of your own way. I think a lot of us know what that's like, to be in our own way. And that there will be joy in the reward of discovering things you never knew about yourself. Again, you will have this whole new perspective. And this program involves the full package. This is the internal work. And then as bonuses, which I'll get to in a minute, you are going to be able to do the external work as well. It's going to be that reflection of everything that you've done internally. So investment in Courageous is $550, $55 full pay. You can click here to do that, or you can make 5 payments of $125. This offer is available until May 23rd at 11:59 Eastern. That is when the cart will close. And there is a fast action bonus today. The first 3 people to sign up for Courageous receive a free 1-hour strategic healing session with me. This session will absolutely catapult your results for this coursework, and you will be completely blown away. And so these are some of the bonuses that come from my work as a stylist. You'll be able to create a capsule wardrobe starting with what you have. You're going to get access to my comprehensive course on being your own stylist. You will get a mini course, a 21-day course of figuring out what you want. This is so powerful when you figure out what you want. Oh my goodness. And of course, lifetime access to the synthesis of style and spirit so that you can tune into all of that incredible knowledge, insight, inspiration that the speakers delivered last week. And then at the end of this sales page is a little bit about me. And the work that I have done as a stylist, and then of course some of my conscious cultivation of the spiritual gifts that I was given really right off the bat, and also delivered in other areas, in those awakenings that occurred. So this webpage can be found at www.hgrantstyle.com/courageous. That is where you can find it. The link will, of course, also be sent to you. And I hope that you will take some time to really commit to exploring yourself and finding that joy and purpose that is totally available to you and waiting for you to experience. So that is the bulk of what I had to share with you, those 3 strategies to live in infinite joy, to truly love your lens, the way that you see the world, the way that you see yourself, the way that you experience your perspective. And I was getting dressed for this webinar today, and I received a message from guidance to share with you a message that came through recently. Sometimes in my dreams or in the liminal space, I hear messages, I hear poetry. My guides love to rhyme. And so I'm going to be very courageous and sing this message that came through not long ago. Surrender, surrender to what's inside. Let it be your guide. No more need to hide. I am by your side. Surrender, surrender to what's inside. So there you go. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I hope that today you can find joy in your experience and everything that is already available to you, that bliss that already exists. Thank you so much for taking this time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you being courageous. Mwah.